Happy Friday, Miami. This is Buy, Sell, Hold Miami, a real estate podcast about what's going on in the South Florida marketplace. I'm Peter Zalewski, condo consultant, expert witness, founder of the Miami Condo Investment Club. I'm joined here by my partner, my co-host, the moderator, the gentleman who does single-family houses and condos over in Coconut Grove. No one else but Daniel Hernandez, a real estate advisor. Daniel, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Peter. What's happening? You went to the Biltmore for the Latin Builders and you came back for the show. You're Ubering all over the place. I know you're not driving.
Nope, haven't had a car since 2013. Let me tell you, that Uber ride, it's about $25. What happened to the $14, the $12 Uber rides?
It's going to go down. Well, first of all, ICE kicked them all out. We're number one ICE city in the country, guys. And then the Waymo's here. You see the little white cars driving around? Anybody can get them now.
I haven't tried it yet. I got to check it out. It's got to be cheaper than Uber.
No, it's more expensive than Uber, which is totally backwards because there's no driver. But we're not talking about that to you today. Everybody, welcome to Buy, Sell, Hold Miami. If you're just joining us for the first time today, in the bottom left of your screen, if you're watching on the YouTubes, and if you're watching on your little itty-bitty phone, rundown's right in the middle. And what is that? Some topics that Peter and I throw back and forth week after week. Yesterday, we had to do them on a Thursday beforehand because I had to be respectful and send them to our host, our guest host. We have a guest today, Pete.
Gentleman by the name
of Benji Power, which sounds like a Marvel superhero, and maybe to some he is a Marvel superhero. And he builds affordable housing or workforce housing or attainable housing. I don't know, I get him mixed up, but he's going to tell us all about it. I'm going to bring him on the show right now. Where is he, Mr. Power? Where's my mouse? Here we go. That was supposed to be smoother. What's going on, Benji?
What's up? Happy Friday.
Benji, how's it going?
Going good. It's going good. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. This is fantastic. If you're watching on vertical, Peter and I's faces are a little smaller than usual because we're giving Benji's in the spotlight. Because Peter and I, we talk a lot. And now Benji's he's the expert, right? We just work here. So Benji, you do affordable housing. And for our listeners who don't live this stuff every day, you're director of real estate development and social impact for Procida Development out of New York. What is social impact? What does that mean for a development company? That's a role I don't typically see on a business card.
Sure. And clarifying, first of all, I'm a native of Miami, so working for New York-based Procida Development Group, but essentially raised here since I was 10 months old. Social impact, many developers in the country, of course, around the world, but definitely here in this United States, the dialogue is evolving. What else are we other than producing profit? We're not producing it in a vacuum. We're producing it in a real world with real people and real neighborhoods. And so social impact is firms out there who are challenging themselves, challenging their fellow development friends to tell the story of what else is your building doing, the products that you're building, the assets. What else are they doing other than generating you a bottom line return? And in the case of affordable housing, not to in any way diminish the value, but in addition to being a good home for somebody, what else are we as a development team doing in the neighborhoods we work in? And so I bring that lens to the longstanding 60-year-old Procida Development Group. They were a social impact focused team anyways, joined them and asked them if they would let me further elevate that storytelling within their firm. First and foremost, I'm a development team member inside of them, pioneering the Florida office for the firm.
But your background, you worked in public housing down here in South Florida before you joined them, right?
Yes, yeah. Urban planner by background, education. We'll get to this if it comes up in different parts of our dialogue today. Realize what the real estate developer does in shaping cities, building cities. So I've been on the since grad school to work in the real estate development space. Had a few different roles within that, including construction roles, and one that I was really excited by that I did during the beautiful years of COVID. I joined Miami-Dade County's Public Housing Authority, and that department used to be known as PHCD, now known as HCD, Housing and Community Development. And so I was in-house there managing one of the topics we'll be talking about, the RAD program.
Right. And with that, I want to jump straight into it. And you're just joining us. I gave you a little bit of a precursor of what the buy, sell, hold is all about. But at the end of each one of these topics, Benji, we're going to actually ask you to buy. You agree, you sell, you think it's BS, or you hold because, hey, you're an adult and and you don't know, and you just want to sit back and eat some popcorn. So to kick that off, Benji, the RAD program it's rad, it's groovy, it's cool. What does RAD stand for, Benji? RAD.
Sure. RAD, the three letters RAD are Rental Assistance Demonstration. It's a horrible name, and that is very normal out of HUD. It's a program of our federal government, HUD's Department, Housing and Urban Development. And it's a horrible name. Development, it was a pilot program. Started in 2012 under Obama's administration, and it's been kept alive by all following presidential administrations, Congresses. It is the leading program in place right now for redeveloping public housing out there.
Okay, so redeveloping why does public housing have to get redeveloped? I thought you just build it, maintain it, and that's it, right? The government maintains public housing.
Yep, yeah. So microwave catch up for anybody listening that's a little bit perplexed by some of these terms. Affordable housing, we can talk about it a little bit later on today, but what is affordable housing? Don't worry about what it is in terms of exact programs. It is exactly obviously what it sounds like. It is housing that is affordable to a family. For the most part around the country, accepted, and I think around the world, there's research, unified research saying 30% of your income on an annual basis should be going towards paying your housing costs, be it a mortgage or rent. It gets a little bit more interesting when you include transportation costs. Maybe we can live and work in Miami and work in Miami and have an affordable house somewhere in the western parts of Palm Beach or down in Homestead. Well, the cost of commute just broke the affordability that you achieve. So for when you're including transportation costs, we're talking of numbers of 40 to 45% of your income should go towards housing and transportation. Public housing, put a capital P on that. It's a specific program out of our federal government. For all of our division in our society, in our country here, we are actually, for better or for worse, but I think for better, a decently social fabric supporting nation. We've been working on this for many decades. I mean, our U.S. Postal Service, of course, is some version of the symbol of that. Our public school system is a version of that. Public housing was the residential housing aspect of that. And so it was housing built by our federal government through many versions of the federal government at local levels, public housing authorities. They are around the country, starting in the 1930s and 40s, started building usually multifamily housing, but row homes, townhomes. One of their main purposes was to house returning members of our military as they were returning from overseas and needing housing immediately before they could figure out the GI Bill, accessing a mortgage, moving out maybe to the suburbs. So public housing has been and is still government-owned and managed housing. It's been through a few different waves in the history of our big cities in this country, a few different waves of when did it get built. And really famous prototypes were built in the late 50s, 60s. And that is some of the quintessential product you think of when you're watching a movie. You think of a high-rise, and you do think that high-rise is dangerous. It's in a low-income neighborhood. We did do a lot of mistakes in how we designed public housing. We kind of experimented, sadly, with the lowest income population and saying, well, what happens when you put everyone in this type of building? And it'll be great. This was a modernist idea from the 60s. So we've been fixing a lot of those mistakes. 30, 40 years. Hope 6 was a really well-known program in the 90s that started redeveloping public housing. And there's been a few other programs since then. RAD is now what's been in place since 2012. And it's being heavily used down here in Miami, where there's 10,000 public housing units in the early 2000s. So that's giving a sense. That's the most Miami-Dade ever was around the country building new public housing units. And they were in these older, more dilapidated buildings. So these different programs, Hope 6 and now RAD, have been enabling public-private partnerships that help not only rebuild the actual physical structure, but also a more healthy mix in the financing backing of these projects.
Yeah, I was looking at press release, what I could find on the internet about some of the projects at Procida that your firm's involved in, and the capital stack. It's not, hey, bridge loan, pre-construction, construction loan, finished. There's like, and from what I could see, there were 5 or 6 layers, and I'm sure it's even more complex than that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I will not go head-to-head with a market rate developer, and we are, the Procida team is market rate also, but I'm not here to say it's more complex, but it's certainly complex in a different way. It is multiple sources. We are essentially an affordable housing developer is working with many different subsidies, call them financing sources, subsidies, city governments, county governments, state governments, and the federal government, and then add in a smattering of profits, foundations. So yeah, you're looking at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sources as a very normal number of sources.
Wow.
For getting out of the ground on a new construction project.
And Peter, I think we've talked about a rad project here. PBS made a documentary about it a few years ago. Contentious, Related Urban had their hand in it, and I'm talking about Liberty Square. So everybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, Liberty Square is, well, it's a square in Liberty City, which is west of 95. Last week, Peter and I talked about the difference between the east side economy and the west side economy. The east being the high rises and the finance and professional services, and the west being everything that supported the east. And there, Liberty Square sits there in the west. And if I understand correctly, that is like one of the OG public housing developments here. And that was very publicly, I'm not going to say dragged through the dirt, but very publicly in the spotlight when Related Urban decided to redevelop that. Now,
with that project, yep.
So, and this is just me looking at it from the outside as an independent researcher. But there was this PBS documentary. It's called Raising Liberty Square, RAZ, not in the positive, but in the bad way. They pushed back a lot on this because the idea of the right to return in terms of RAD developments, and the right to return, folks, it's effectively when a developer comes in, and Benji, cut me off if I'm talking out of my ass here. So they give the residents an option, right? You can stay on site through construction, which who wants to live in a construction site? You can relocate temporarily on site if they're doing it in phases. If the developer is doing this in phases, you can accept a Section 8 housing voucher and just say, hey, I don't want to live here. I'll just go somewhere else. Meanwhile, or you can get a permanent relocation voucher. And in the case of Liberty Square, it took them 6 years to build this thing. And I don't know about you, but my life takes turns and twists and changes over the course of 6 years. I might not, be able to wait for this to finish. And that, from what I could research about Liberty Square, this was an example of maybe something that was dragged out, unplanned, or just things happen. And the outcome was a lot of families were improperly displaced. And I know that's not in the spirit of what the RAD programs are all about, but it's just an observation into sort of the things that could happen through a RAD redevelopment.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I know we got other topics, but So anybody listening, anybody watching, if you got an opinion about what I'm about to mention, that's fine. You're allowed to have that opinion. For the sake of listening what I'll explain, I'd say park that opinion, and that opinion being, is public housing a good thing or not? So park that if you want to park it. Because I know there are people out there who aren't happy that it exists the way it exists, aka it being a housing of last resort for those who are at the lowest level of the income class when you're ranking all of our nation's economic classes. And to qualify for public housing, median income is an important statistic. Won't get into the weeds, but if you line up everybody's income in an area, Miami-Dade County, for example, and you go for median, that statistic instead of average, because when you go for average, uber wealthy individuals skew an average, blaming them for being uber wealthy. But in the game of math statistics, give you a false understanding of what salary numbers, what income numbers live in this county.
Luxury condos, Benji. Luxury condos. You take a look at the condo market, the big Mark Zuckerberg stuff. He bought a house, but he's skewing the numbers. So I'm with you 100%, Benji.
Right.
Keep talking the truth. Keep talking it.
Income is what numbers are lying in the middle. So the numbers called 100% AMI, area median income.
Right.
That's your quote unquote normal income family. The families that are allowed to qualify for public housing have to be at 30% AMI. So it's essentially close to poverty. You are 30% or lower. So it is poverty and a little bit above. So public housing is for that population class. income level class, and it is, in my opinion, good a tool. Can it be improved? Yes. RAD program, now the leading program for redeveloping these older buildings. We're doing a few great things in Miami-Dade County. I'm no longer at the housing authority, obviously, so I'm not speaking for them, but much of our public housing was built in the 70s in Miami at a time when we were building low density. Cities like Chicago, they had a significant high-rise development and no choice. They were always
Green. You had Cabrini Green. You had Robert Taylor homes. I grew up in Chicago on the south side. They built a series of 15 to 25-story towers. Must have been like, I don't know, 12, 18 of them. Everybody was concentrated in one place. If anybody's a baseball fan, Chicago White Sox, they play right by where that was. And ultimately, you had this great divide, this great segregation of the city. And some would argue because they concentrated everybody in one area, they all tended to be African Americans.
Wait, so you said to be eligible for this program, you have to be 30% or under AMI. So
anybody technical out there, you can go up to 40% roughly, but yes.
So guys, I just did the quick back in the napkin calculator on that. So AMI, correct me if I'm wrong, Benji, here in Dade County is $87,200, 100%.
100% for a family of four, perhaps, or one individual.
No, I think it's for a family of four, and then 30% of that divided by 2,080, assuming a 40-hour work week. That's $1,250 an hour, guys. That is pretty bad. So you have to be below that, but somewhere between 30, 40 or less % to qualify for this public housing.
Many families are purely living on Social Security, disability checks. Many elderly actually qualify for public housing, and they're purely living on their Social Security check.
Peter and I, and we got to move on to the next topic, but Peter and I have talked in length about the ALICE program here. You and I, when we first met, we were talking about ALICE, and it's that really dangerous place right over that 40%, that wiggle room where you don't qualify for any of these bennies, and you're kind of just left hanging out to dry. And that's where so many people in this county are at.
Up to 0%, 80% AMI, you qualify for different affordable housing programs. Argue the real hang dry moment is when you're above 80, and that is a very significant population in this county. That's college grads. That's first, second college. You're earning 40, 45K a year. You're definitely above 80% AMI, definitely not able to afford rent in many of the centrally located neighborhoods in Miami.
Right, you don't have a partner.
Right. If you're partnering up, then you got a little bit more income. But so RAD is trying to densify some of the sites because of that low density product we had. We're trying to bring that higher density product through RAD projects, and also try and create mixed income opportunities. Related group, staying away from any classification good or bad on them. They have quite a few projects where they're bringing in some of the 100% AMI, higher percentage AMI units into a building that has the redeveloped public housing unit in it. So they're actually doing some mixed income buildings.
Got it. But that has nothing to do with Live Local, right?
It has nothing to do with Live Local. That was coming kind of as mixed income is always discussed in the affordable housing industry. It, of course, if you're thinking as earning your permanent financing, when you're going mixed income, you're bringing in those higher paying tenants. That is helping you obtain a higher financing mortgage for the project. So it has that good for it. Helps you execute on the project. There's a lot of we're not going to have today of, does it work out? Do mixed income families live well together? And it's being experimented with around the nation and not just here in Miami. Raising Liberty, fascinating documentary. The right to return. There were programs from HUD in the past where residents literally got lost. You demolish the building and then say, I don't know where everybody went. What do you mean you don't know where everybody went? That's your job. Nobody told me to do that part of the job. For the words. Right. So through the program,
we're not commissioned we're not regulated by the FCC here on Buy Sell Hold.
Let it rip.
Program made that a real strict requirement. You cannot lose a resident. Most of the developers are doing good by it. I did watch the documentary. You're correct. There is some chatter about everybody come back, yes or no. We could talk about that at length, but
I opened a Pandora's box with the RAD program. We could have a whole episode about RAD, but we do have to move on to the next topic. And Peter, you're being awfully quiet. I can't tell if you're thinking, if you're being pensive, if Benji's just blowing your mind right now, but Buy Sell Hold, the RAD program is rad, Pete.
Well, first for disclosure, and I don't know if I need to disclose this or not, but I'm a board member on a real estate division of 10 North Group, which used to be related to Opelika redevelopment. It's called the 10 North Group now. So I sit on the real estate board. So I don't know if I have a conflict or not. I don't think I do, but I'm just sort of putting it out there because I don't want anybody coming
Mr.
back
Full Disclosure over here.
and bitching and moaning about me. Benji, before I make a decision, help me understand the real numbers. We're talking about AMI, right? All right, so and what does it stand for? I always
Area median income. Median.
All right, so the area is that like the city of Miami? Is that like Miami-Dade County? Is that the okay? So okay, it's all the county. So if I want to figure out what that number is, because people always throw it around, I'm looking at Census Bureau data now. It's talking about median household income. It's talking about per capita income. How do I kind of find out that number? Because I always hear percentages. I'm somebody who needs to visualize what does it really cost.
Yes.
That's why Daniel's $12.50 an hour really kind of resenates with me. But
Sure.
just so I know
Right.
going forward.
Miami-Dade County publishes it on the Housing and Community Development Department website. We'll publish it.
Okay.
Google search usually is good. And quick correction for you, it was 86,000 is 100% median income for a family of one. For a family of four, it's 123,000.
Okay.
So it's
got
been
it.
going up.
Got it. Okay. I'm a slow learner, so I guarantee by the fifth story, I will know what's going on in terms of all of the particulars, all the details. It's fascinating. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it. So at this point on story one, I'm gonna have to be a hold because I feel like a neophyte. I am way outside of my lane, and I'm a spectator, and I'm enjoying this. But I'm gonna have some dumb questions. I promise you that.
Benji has me convinced PBS documentary be damned, and I love a good PBS doc, but he pointed out a really good thing. It's kind of like the charter school argument when we had Josh Dallenberth, the educator, on here. Do you like kids who are 7 being able to read, or do you not like kids 7 years old being able to read? And it's sort of the same argument. Do you want people to be homeless or not? And the sausage is made sometimes kind of dirty, and it's not perfect. He sold me on it. I'm a buy. Moving along. I know Peter's going to have something to say about this.